Hi, I'm Rosewells1984. Welcome to my Liquid Story Binder tutorials. This tutorial is the first in two videos that are the last parts of my Getting Started series in Liquid Story Binder. This is a continuation of the previous video and with respect to writing and planning your work using the Liquid Story Binder program. We have a lot to cover in this particular tutorial, so let's go ahead and get started. By the end of this video, you should be able to know the following. Create a story Bible within the Liquid Story Binder program, and this covers a wealth of material with respect to planning your work within the program, creating and using a checklist within the program, and also learning how to use the mind map feature of the program. There are a few things about a story Bible that you should know before delving into this part of the program. It's usually a screenwriter's term which people use in the creation of their stories to keep track of different elements within it. It's a great tool for outlining and maintaining consistency in your stories. Usually you can either do it for an individual story or for an ongoing series. It's also composed of many different story elements. You can keep track of characters, locations, backstory elements and plot details, and any external research that you do with respect to the story that you're creating. To use a story Bible within Liquid Story Binder XE, you can create categories in either planning or listing, which is usually the easiest method. In creating a story Bible, I usually create story Bibles using the listing feature, but I'm going to show you how to do both between those modes of the program. You can use jump words to link and jump between different files for reference to characters and locations, and if you haven't already done so, you can refer to my jump words tutorial, but I'll revisit some aspects of that within this particular tutorial. You can use many different tools to keep track of details in the way that you wish within your story Bible. It's quite a bit to cover, and if you're a planner, this is a very helpful feature to be able to use. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, to begin this particular tutorial, I'm going to start off with a few ground rules. Creating a story Bible within the Liquid Story Binder program is largely dependent on what elements you want to keep track of in your story. So anything that I show you in this particular tutorial is a guideline. It's not necessarily something you have to follow to the teeth, but it is helpful for you to examine dimensions of the story or the series of stories that you plan to create within the Liquid Story Binder program. Note that these aren't pre-created categories. These are categories that I've created myself for the purposes of the story that I'm building within this binder. So if you want to examine different dimensions or aspects of your story with your own categories, with your own naming systems, or using either one of these particular features of the program, it's entirely up to you. First thing I'm going to start off explaining with respect to creating a story Bible in the program is usually if you want to have kind of a central place to keep track of all these different elements, you can either create a planner or create a listing. The planner feature is shown on the left here where I have my mouse here, and the listing is on the right here. Note, you don't have to create a story Bible using both of these particular features of the program. You can use one or the other. It's up to you in terms of what your preference and what's easier for you to work with. Now, let me close this off and focus on the planner part of it first. So what I've done here, as you can see from this particular mode, I have each of the categories, the respective categories I'm building within my story Bible. I have the pitch, which I've made notes here on each of these particular categories to help me keep track of each of the dimensions I'm examining within my story Bible. I have my pitch, which is the beginning blurb, which summarizes what my book work is about, or if you're doing a series, you can do multiple pitches. I have a scenes category, which this comprises of the mainstay episodes that may happen within my particular story. If you're a screenwriter, then some of these may apply to you more directly if you're doing a ongoing planning with respect to the a series that you're developing with characters, with particular aspects of the story you're developing in the precursory details of things. I have a story summary here, which this is a standalone novel that I'm working on, so basically my story category is going to be an overview of the entire story that I'm creating. I have a section for my primary characters, my secondary characters, the important objects or tasks that are within the novel. This helps me keep track of different things. If you're a fantasy sci-fi writer, if you have something with respect that you need to keep track of in terms of particular power plays or that sort of thing, like in Lord of the Rings, you would probably like create something with the One Ring or something like that. You can keep track of it in this particular dimension. I have different classes, which for fantasy sci-fi writers, that's also kind of pertinent for that particular thing. If you have different races that you're keeping track of, or class systems, or things of that nature within your novel. I have particular themes that I wanted to explore within my novel, so I have a heading for that. I have primary settings that I want to keep track of within the novel, so I have a heading for that. And any external notes or research that I do with respect to the program that I want to personally keep track of, I have a heading for that as well. And you can have the same measure within your particular listing feature of the program, like I've done the same thing here, only I just haven't noted the particular functions within the listing part of my program. So that's basically an overview of how I start out my story Bible. I'm not going to cover every particular category I've created within this story Bible for the purposes of time, but I am going to show you certain dimensions I've created in order to give you ideas for what you could do with your story Bible within the Lucas Storywriter program. There's a lot of tools at your disposal here, and it's generally up to you in terms of how you use them, but I'm going to show you a few things that you can start off with your own stories and be able to explore from there. So the first thing I'll start off with is my pitch. This is for a work in progress I began back in 2010 called The Dart Jumper, and basically the premise is a teen boy from the 41st century thwarts an attack by a time-traveling serial killer in the 21st century and becomes a target himself. And so basically I have two paragraphs that summarize the gist of the story and my character, and I have the main premise situated in here as well. I've done this within the chapter mode of the program, but you'll also note that if you look in the planner feature of the program, I've also created a note that also highlights the premise as well, as you can see here. And of course I have a backup file as well in terms of the revisions I've made to this particular chapter. So that's for the pitch. For my story, as you can see, it's a summary of events in my collective story, and what I have here in chapter mode of the program is a full page listing of everything that happens within the story I've created. I've even included a word count in terms of how much I want to write on the story, and basically how much time I want to keep track of it for 2 months. I began this project a while ago, and I'm currently in the process of editing it now, but I come back to this particular story Bible in order to sort out specific details and be able to keep track of things within my story. One of the things that you can use within the Liquid Story Binder program that's very helpful is called the jump words feature. And basically, if you're within a chapter or on text editing mode of the program, you can create jump words to link to any file that you create in your binder. It's an extremely helpful tool to use if you want to quickly reference different things. I'm going to show you briefly how you can create a jump word, and I have a separate tutorial on this as well, which actually delves within the same story if I recall correctly. But basically, if you want to access a file using the jump words feature, you can highlight a particular name. Let me see if this works. You can see that by highlighting the name Jace, I automatically pull up a dossier showing my main character's details within the dossier mode of the program, and I'm going to show you how to do that briefly. So the first thing that you want to do is you can go to the Tools part of the program, Jump Words. As you can see here, I have different particular files that I have created links with jump words in. So to show you how to do that, I'm going to go ahead and delete this. You could create a new jump word via the new item, and basically I want to go through all of my files here and try to find my dossier mode of the character Jace handle. Make selection, and then I want to every time that I highlight the term Jace, for example, I want that file to pull up. So I say OK. And so now every time I highlight the word Jace within any text editing part of the program that I want to refer to, it will pull up that dossier file. So I'll show you how that works again. And automatically pulls up like so. Now, one of the things that differs from using a planner, the planner feature with respect to a story Bible, and the listing feature of the program with respect to creating a story Bible is within a listing feature, you don't necessarily have to have like name files to add, and you can add very different files within a particular heading that you create within the listing feature. So for example, if I'm adding stuff under the heading of my pitch, I can go to the items menu and choose add files, and I can find where I have my pitch, which just so happens to be in the chapter mode of the program, and I can put that underneath that heading. I can also add files again and find the note that's also called pitch. Though if you have different named files within the program, you can usually go into your file and item selection menus and find the files that you want, even if they don't have the same name or type. So let's do that. And then let's see. For primary characters, for example, if I want to add a file that has to do with my primary characters, I can look at the listing for my character list, and then if I want to access that particular mode of the program, I can just double click on it, and as you can see, I have a separate listing here already created where I have a group of my characters from the work in progress I'm working on, the Dart Jumper, and I have different elements with respect to each of the characters that I'm working on. Let me see if I can find a few files here that I've created that I don't have added already. So let's see, I have Jay's handle, and I know I have a journal somewhere with respect to the character as well, but I'm not sure if here we go, I found it. And then I would make selection, and as you can see I have two files here that I've already created within the program. I have a dossier here for my main character, and I also have a journal where I keep track of his thoughts and then explore different aspects of the character within the journal feature of the program, and I just write it from his perspective, just as an exercise in creativity to help me delve into the character's motivations and different things that way. Very simple to do, and I do the same thing for one of the other characters. I have Erudita handle, who is Jace's mom, and as you can see I've created a dossier for her, and I've also created a journal for her, but this isn't necessarily the same name. As you can tell, I've named it Erudita's journal, so I created this as a separate file at the time that I did work with it, and I also have consolidated her journals within the chapter mode of the program if I wanted to do that as a summary to print out. And these are just ideas that you can of things that you can use within the Look a Story Binder program to build your stories and build different facets of your characters, your locations, different things of that nature. For the last part of this tutorial, I'm going to show you a couple of features within the Look a Story Binder program. The very first one I'm going to tackle is the aspect of dealing with checklists within the program. The very first thing that you should know about checklists is that you can use it as an itemized to-do list to be able to check off different things within the program. As you can see to the right here, I have one example of a checklist that you can use. This one is an independent standalone, is pretty much my method for plotting novels. As you can see, I can check certain aspects of what I complete within the listing feature, and it's very easy to create new items, put subtext within it, and then be able to check it off as needed. If you want to create an associated checklist with a particular part of the program, just go to the respective file, create an association, and then be able to name it as a checklist, and I can show you how to do that in just a moment. So let's close this off, and this as well. I'm going to go to my planner, which has my table of contents. I'm going to make sure this is in chapter mode so I can access the chapter for my first chapter of my work. And what I'm going to do is go to the File menu, choose Association, and then just create a checklist that way. And I'll name it as the same file name, which makes it easier to go back to in this case. And I'm going to create a few items here, just in general to show you what I can do with a particular chapter. And as you can see, I've created these particular items under my checklist to be able to check off as I go through. Since I've already created a checklist, I can go check that off. Since I've already created an outline for chapter 1, as you can see from here, and you might have seen this in one of my previous tutorials, so I can go ahead and check that off. And I can go into my chapter, edit this particular item in, and check that off as well. For the last part of the tutorial, I'm going to show you the way to create a mind map within the Liquid Story Binder program. Basically what a mind map is, it's like a brainstorming measure that you could easily do it via pen and paper, but there's also a graphical representation that you can use within the Liquid Story Binder program and have that arrangement of items at your leisure. So let's pull up an example of what I mean by using a mind map. So let's go to my view files. I'm just going to go to one of the mind maps. It's this little symbol here, and I'm going to choose Garodia because that's one of the main locations in my novel. And so basically what you see here is a cluster of different items that I have around a central focus. And Garodia Earth is basically the fictional setting of my novel, The Dark Jumper. And I have several different offshoot items, brainstorms, that basically tell me aspects of what I want to include in this particular location. It's very easy to click on an item, color code it, as you can see here. I can also add a particular extension item, arrange it to where I want using the arrows here. It's very easy. And I can just arrange them in the space however I want to, and then be able to edit it like so. That's all for this tutorial. In the next video I'll be wrapping up my writing and planning using Liquid Story Binder series of tutorials, and also make concluding notes on the overarching series with respect to the getting started part of my tutorial series. Thanks for watching. I'm Rose-Tinted 1984, and I'll see you next video.